Okay, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
And today we're going to analyze what an Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard ticket would look like for the 2020 election. I don't know if you guys remember, but sometimes it's popular that candidates will team up in order to gain more steam. In 2016, Ted Cruz teamed up with Carly Fiorina, if I remember correctly, towards the end of his campaign, give him a little bit of a boost. Outside of the boost, it seems like a lot of the Yang gang loves Tulsi, and a lot of Tulsi people are warming up to Andrew Yang, maybe because both of them are outsiders. But I have oft sat in this chair as we've talked about politics, setting up especially for the show, and wondered, these two seem to get along, they have a lot in common, and how much yin to his yang would Tulsi be? Do you like what I just did there? Like, scale of 1 to 10.
Sure.
1 being dad joke, 10 being amazing.
A 1.
Oh, okay, thanks. Yeah,
nothing wrong with dad jokes. Just, it is a dad joke.
Yeah,
so
okay. Well, hey, I'm a dad. So anyway, Cody, tell us, what do you think, based upon your first impression and your internet research, qualifies them to be candidates together and or makes them a good duo, a team, almost as good as us?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing you pointed out that is really interesting is, there's definitely a lot of similarities between the supporters of Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard from a kind of temperament and just perspective of, like, they're very, very much anti-war, very much anti-intervention, very much anti-corporate kind of lackey Democrats, which currently are kind of running rampant in that party right now. So
okay.
One of the interesting things to point out is that, and I don't think this is like the biggest bridges that they can't be crossed, but Tulsi is, I believe, erring on the $15 federal minimum wage, while Andrew Yang, of course, is against that and prefers the UBI. That's one small thing. They're both pretty much anti-intervention, anti-war. The big thing, though, and I think the debates kind of highlighted it over the last 2 nights, where I think there is, because we're going to get into later some of the reasons why it might not be a great ticket, but I do think they complement each other in the way that Andrew Yang definitely has all of his different policies. I mean, I'll just throw up on screen really quickly. If you just go to his website, I mean, this isn't even all of them. I'm just going down. Like, he has policies on everything. I think Tulsi Gabbard had like maybe 7 or 8 things stated, somewhere really specific.
Well, and she's also kind of known not as a one-trick pony, but as a first-trick pony, and her first trick being anti-war.
Like, she legitimately cares about what we're doing overseas intervention. Like, that's what she really cares about.
And to be honest with you,
on.
I gotta say, I view that as Andrew Yang's weakest point.
Foreign policy?
Foreign policy. I mean, they obviously asked him, hey, Asian guy, most Asian-looking guy up there, there's problem in the South China Sea. What do you think? What do your cousins say? You know, I mean...
Exactly. Yeah. One thing I want to point out, though, which we admitted in the last episode, and I want to bring this up, Andrew Yang is not the only Asian candidate running for president. Technically, Kamala Harris is half Asian. She is. Her mother, true. I believe, is from India.
From India. Yeah.
So just to be honest,
I don't know.
Like,
we kind of view India as its own continent almost now, right?
I think I said to something. Well, no, it's more like I noticed it's different in Europe and in the States.
Uh-huh.
In the States, when we say Asian, we really are referring mostly to like Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, we think of East Asia. Yeah.
Yeah. Where in Europe, Asia seems to be more of a term that's used for the actual continent of Asia. All of it, not just China and South, which is what we use.
And I also think it's mostly linguistic. When we say Asian, I think we're generally focusing on the tonal languages. I mean, you're talking about...
Yeah,
whatever. Moving on.
Talk about the Americans and Europeans' perspective of the language. But one thing I do want to bring up that I think was really interesting when you look at the debates the other night was Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think anyone would say Tulsi Gabbard would appear timid on stage and like she wasn't ready to confront people. There was that exchange that went kind of viral, I guess, where what was it? I believe one of the candidates said that they misused the name of the terrorist group. I'm blanking right now. I'm sorry about that. And she came at him. That's one thing that I think would pair well with Andrew Yang. He doesn't seem like someone very confrontational and is going to come at you.
And he's so credible on the UBI, on domestic policy, on education, on jobs, on all of this because of his experience. But the one experience he woefully lacks, actually I shouldn't say woefully, but definitely lacks, is that foreign policy. But when Tulsi gets up there, I mean, she's like a lioness, man. I'm the only veteran on stage. I was in a medical unit that patched up people in Afghanistan. Don't you tell me and my brothers and sisters in the Army or the Marines or the Navy that we got to be engaged overseas. That was a powerful powerful moment, and she did it with such grace and such dignity that I think Andrew Yang has very, very few blind spots, but one of his blind spots is foreign policy, because let's face it, he became a presidential candidate 6 months ago in the people's eye, at least. Or let's just say he knew for the past year that he wanted to run. You can't cram in 6 months of intense study foreign policy decisions and wisdom, for lack of a better term, into the smartest brain. So even if he were elected president, he would have to surround himself with very knowledgeable people on the world stage. So why not surround himself now? Because Tulsi, she knows her stuff. We watched her on the Joe Rogan podcast, killed it. We watched her in the debates. She knows what she's talking about, killed it. Watched her on Fox News the next day talking about how the world's gearing up for war with Iran, and it's up to the Trump administration to be anti-war, which so far they seem like they have been. I mean, she knows her foreign policy stuff. She is the yin to his yang, more so than anybody else out there, because the other thing is I would see Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris, even some of the other guys like Hickenlooper and Buttigieg and all of them would just be angry being attached to this guy's hip and being half of a ticket instead of the center of attention, whereas Tulsi seems graceful and dignified enough where I actually think it could be an asset for both of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, your running mate, especially when you're running for president, is someone you think can help you get elected into the White House. Ultimately,
yeah,
because the vice president doesn't have this crucial job that they must be performing on a daily basis. They kind of become almost like your proxy. I'll send the VP to handle this. I'll send the VP.
Now, here's one flaw with choosing Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, 1 second. I want to get to something where I think, honestly, I hate to say it, I know a lot. I've seen you guys in the comments say how cool would it be. I don't think it's really a good idea at all. I'm going to go through right here.
Okay.
As we were saying before, Tulsi Gabbard.
That's interesting. I thought you'd like it.
No, because as we were saying before, Tulsi Gabbard's very passionate, really very, very passionate about one thing. It's ending the war in Syria. And I have it up on the screen right now.
Okay.
This is from votetulsi.com. Tulsi's the leading voice in Congress calling for an end America's interventionist wars of regime change that have cost our nation trillions of dollars and thousands of lives. She has introduced a resolution that would end our illegal and counterproductive war to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad, which is creating more devastation, human suffering, and refugees while strengthening terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Now, controversially, I want to go on record and say I 100% agree with that. However, I believe it was less than 12 months ago, correct me if I'm wrong, it was very recently ago, we actually launched missiles at Syria because we believe that Assad used chemical weapons on his own people. And when we're talking about one of the biggest roadblocks for, as we just talked about last night, NBC hosting the debate probably shafted Andrew Yang. At the very least,
probably like 99.9%.
They didn't ask him enough questions. You start there. At the other end of the extreme, they actively suppressed him on stage. Anyway, my point being, that's what you're going to be fighting against, and that's probably the olive branch you would want to extend as your running mate. Being against the war in Syria, especially against fighting against Assad, that doesn't play well with these people. And the biggest thing I want to say is there's kind of narrative going around that it's conservatives that are censored off social media. But time and time again, every time a big leak comes of these conservatives that were censored, there's 4 or 5 like leftist progressive groups that are anti-war that are thrown in there with them.
Yeah.
I believe in the Pinterest leak, it directly is listed. They're just anti-war groups that are blocked from Pinterest, the same as pro-life groups. So
it's interesting because if you watch the Jimmy Dore show, for example, he is constantly referencing anti-war groups because he's vehemently anti-war. He's constantly referencing anti-war groups that also get censored for stupid innate reasons. Look, if you're one of those anti-war groups that's storming Congress, scaring the crap out of all the security, not sure whether or not you're a violent protester or just a psychopath, well then fine, I'm okay with measures getting taken against you and you getting arrested and so on and so forth because you broke the law and you wear it as a badge of honor anyway, so it's not like it's persecution. Those kind of psychos, I'm okay, but if they're people that have a vehement anti-war stance and they want to air their grievances in an open format of free speech, then you cannot censor them or you are censorious, you are anti-First Amendment.
Okay, and guess what?
You're a tyrant.
There are people in the media and in the government that are censorious, anti-First Amendment.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm saying
that's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is working against that as a concept is almost like impossible. I would just say I couldn't imagine the idea. It's just it's very similar to 2016. Honestly, there's a lot of parallels between Trump and Yang we've seen, just because they're both businessmen, outsiders, no political experience, proposing drastic things.
Yes.
They both need to find a way to appeal to the mainstream portion of their party. You look, Trump didn't take on some crazy out there someone who had nothing to do with the Republican Party. You can say what you're talking about Mike Pence's politics.
He got like the
debate
most.
that.
He promised that I'll get a conservative running mate. And dude, I'll tell you this right now. One of my family members that will remain nameless was kind of never Trump. But he said when Trump fulfilled his promise of appointing as a vice president a true conservative, and he appointed Mike Pence, even though he actually really did like Mike Pence, wasn't his first choice, but he recognized that Mike Pence was a conservative, and that was a fulfilled campaign promise. And he was so tired of non-fulfilled campaign promises by people that he liked that he actually decided to vote for the guy that he didn't like, who fulfilled the campaign promise just because he viewed it as an act of honesty.
No, exactly. So again, I just think strategically, if Yang were to get to the point where he's actually thinking, who's seriously my running mate in this election, I can't imagine he'd pick another person who's seen as someone who's anti-establishment, very vocally anti-war. Again, I mean, they get the exact same treatment from the media. They're both allegedly propelled by trolls. Like, they share so many similar, I don't want to say weakness, but detriments for winning the primary and then winning a general. Because here's the thing. The other thing is, while it is kind of cool, because ultimately when you're talking about your running mate, I'm pretty sure you're not worried about winning the primary anymore. You're thinking general. Worth noting, however...
Some have done it in primaries.
Sometimes you need that boost, yeah. However, though, again, I would say one of Andrew Yang's biggest strengths in a general election is being able to pull voters from all across the aisle. That's like one of the biggest strengths he has. It's just kind of... That's something Tulsi does as well. So I feel like they both are going to get an unfair deal from certain parts of the establishment in the media and in the government, just because, you know, what's going to happen. There's going to be the candidates, ones they want, they don't. And they're both going to have an appeal to stretch across the aisle. It's just redundant. Like... It feels like you lose in the end if you run that route. His best route's probably going to get someone who's a true progressive. He's a true conservative for Trump, a true progressive to go hand in hand with him to really be the person to go out there. Like I said, be his proxy when people say he isn't in line with the current Democratic Party.
Wait, a true progressive or a true mainstream Democrat?
That is the question.
Because right now, the Democrats are suffering hard because 80-some-odd% of Democrats don't want to have Medicare for all, yet every single person up on that debate stage said Medicare for all.
I don't believe it's... Are you sure it's Medicare for all or Medicare for all including...
Eliminating of private insurance.
Okay, yeah, eliminating private insurance.
Which is basically the insinuation of Medicare for all. There's the public option is the terminology for having private and public option. Medicare for all means wiping out private health care, going with Medicare for everybody.
I mean, look, I don't want to get into that. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Well, I do agree with one thing, though. Like I said, I do agree that we hear you guys in the comments. We see you guys not only in our comments elsewhere. There's a very large group of disaffected voters who are looking at the Democratic Party right now as Democrats and saying, wow, I am really not liking what I'm seeing at all. I'm seeing a lot of people that are way to the left of me. I'm seeing a lot of people proposing things that I would have never imagined proposed just years ago. And people questioning, like, one, is this party serious about beating Trump in 2020? Because it doesn't seem like it. And two, are they just going to keep going left until the wheels fall off? Like, at some point, there has to be... You don't even have to come back to the center. Just... You have to stop going left at one point and say, this is where we are, for stability reasons. People know what it means to be a Democrat. I say right now, that is the biggest thing. I mean, you could go back a decade ago to the prior elections and say, what does it mean to be a Democratic candidate and what does it mean to be a Republican candidate? And we could probably list a few things and say, this is what they're about.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know. I literally could not tell you today what are the 5 or 6 things that make you a Democratic candidate president.
Melee. That's all we can say. Hey, can I just interject one thought? You said you didn't think it would be a good idea, and this would only be my reservation. I think Tulsi's a phenomenal person, just in general, that I would trust and I feel like I could work with. Disagree with a lot of her policies and a lot of her. I wouldn't call her leftist. I'd call her liberal. However, Barack Obama is on record. This is a very obscure thing that people don't know about Barack Obama, but he said in an interview when asked what he thought his best political decision ever was, and he said his best political decision was choosing Joe Biden as his vice president. And if you look at the numbers, here's something. I'm not saying this is why he did it, But Joe Biden brought the state of Pennsylvania, a swing state, with him that's got a bunch of electoral votes and represents the general demography of a lot of the Rust Belt, which is what made Donald Trump president. Who chose the governor of Alaska? John McCain. When he chose Sarah Palin, he brought how many electoral votes with him? The bare minimum of 2.
Well, how many does Hawaii have?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that when Barack Obama chose Joe Biden, he brought 10, 15, however many electoral votes Pennsylvania's got with him, whereas John McCain only upped the bare minimum of 2. If you choose Tulsi Gabbard, maybe you can look this up right now. If you choose Tulsi Gabbard as your running mate, since you're not a senator that comes from a state that already has a built-in following, built-in electoral votes, like even John Kasich was able to win his home state of Ohio in 2016. If you're Andrew Yang, you don't have a home state because you're not a home politician. I don't see the advantage of bringing 2 electoral votes. Or how many electoral votes is Hawaii?
4. Yeah,
4.
That's actually true. That's a really good point. Yeah, he doesn't have this kind of regional demographic base behind him. He's, I believe, from New York, works in Silicon Valley. You know what I mean? It's not exactly like he's hometown hero coming to save the day. He is someone who's kind of been around the country. He's traveled those areas. But yeah, again, it just speaks to, I definitely think if Andrew Yang were to make it to the point where he's thinking seriously, who's my running mate?
Yeah.
He's going to be thinking someone, not necessarily full-on sellout, shill, corporatist left.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Someone closer to that, someone who's been in the party. Yeah, not Joe Biden, but someone who's been in the party, someone who's a face that people aren't immediately going to frown upon when he... Because, Donald Trump did run into these issues. I would say even in the Republican Party, by the time he was elected, there was still some pushback against him. I'd have to imagine Yang would be dealing with some. It could be the kind of thing where someone like Andrew Yang wins and it's similar to Donald Trump, where he's never fully accepted because, dude, I don't think it's talked about enough, but I could not imagine paying my dues as an assembly person, as a senator, fighting to get on these councils, backdoor politicking to make sure that I have these wins in my belt so 10 years from now I can run for president. And some guy just says, I see problems, I'm going to run for president and wins. I don't care what you say, there's going to be animosity against that. Trump dealt with it, Yang would deal with that same animosity of who do you think you are? 30 years ago, I decided I want to be president and I ran for city council. Who do you think you are? That is something I don't know how you overcome. There's going to be that jealousy and animosity of he didn't pay his dues. He just said, I wrote a book. I'm a businessman. I have ideas, so I'm running for president.
Yeah.
I think that is the reason why.
Maybe that's the threat to the system. That's where the pushback comes from.
Well, that's part of it, of course. But I do think part of it's also he is proposing drastic change. Because I'm going to be honest. Well, I support Andrew Yang. Sometimes I do think, okay, let's close our eyes. Imagine he's elected president in 2021. What would that actually look like? I know what I would want it to look like. But, dude, I could easily imagine there just being a complete logjam in Congress over UBI. His supporters
I'll tell you this right now.
Our Senate, we're going to have to go. But I just mean, there is a worst-case scenario as well that would be concerning to people that are establishment. I think it's a little bit foolish because in my lifetime, I've never woken up one day after a presidential election and been like, oh, my God, the sky's green. More or less, we have checks and balances, and we have the 3 branches of government, and we have a way to keep things from falling apart.
As long as the Democrats don't stack the Supreme Court and eliminate the Electoral College and get away with everything they say they want to.
Hold on. Really quickly, that is literally word for word just swap Democrat and Republican when people are accusing the Republican Party of doing today. So, that's never going to go away.
No, I'm talking about no longer making it the number of judges it is and stacking it to 12. They want to take it from being a 7 it's 9, 7.
Dude,
oh my gosh!
All I'm saying is both parties say they're going to rig the system so they never lose. That's always what both parties accuse.
It's different if you're trying to change the Constitution and make it 12 judges so there can be tied votes and so that they could do basically the equivalent of a corporate hostile takeover. But anyway, we've gone too long.
Differently, but I would say in spirit, it's the same. Those people over there are going to rig it against me.
No, but one is actually doing a permanent infrastructural damage. The other one is doing damage that can be done in the next election.
You're right. Only one's good, only one's bad. I don't think it's good for either party to do it.
Stacking the Supreme Court by changing it to 12 judges from the number that it's been for the past 250 years is totally different than appointing Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Okay, but that's totally different.
What I'm saying is let me know when they actually do that, and it's not just an idea someone had.
Okay. Fine. Look, at the end of the day, I feel comfortable saying I would feel much more comfortable addressing, dealing with, and interacting with the Democrat Party if they were putting up tickets such as Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. Based on what I saw in the debates, I can't say I feel that comfortable with pretty much anybody else up there. I don't know how you feel, Cody, but we'd love to see what you guys think. Please like, subscribe, share this video with your friends, continue the conversation in your comments. We're actually going to be doing video replies to some of these comments. We've got some really good in-depth analysis from a lot of our fans that we actually think is worthy of its own video production, and we want to know what you guys think. So please let us know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Problem Solver Politics.